I don't know yet. They spent several hours in A&E while Lana had skeletal surveys and urine tests, and her head was cleaned and stitched and some of her hair was cut. Her clothes were exchanged for a gown, and her feet, pale and chalky, stuck out naked from the hem. Jen wanted to hold those feet to her chest, to kiss them, as she had when Lana was a baby, but just above each ankle was a purplish line, like the indentations left by socks, only thinner, darker, the kind of mark a fine rope might leave. They made Jen pause. They were a hint, a threat, and they signalled a beginning. The beginning of a new doubt, a new fear, a new gap opening up between her and her daughter. The police noticed the marks too, and photographed them when they came to take Lana's white fleece jacket, now brown and stiff with blood. There was so much blood on it that Jen found herself wondering again if her daughter was really still alive. "Head wounds, even relatively minor ones, bleed a lot," a doctor said, seeing the look on Jen's face. There was a pat on the shoulder and another offer of coffee. This was followed by a great deal of waiting and then of walking, and Jen found her boots were rubbing, though they'd been perfectly comfortable crossing fields and tracing woodland paths a week ago. And finally they were in a ward. Lana in a bed, the drip hung up and heat packs renewed. She was asleep, or if not quite asleep, then in some fog of her own. The day had been blue and bright, but now the sun was low, the air cold. A ladybird had got inside and kept throwing itself at the window with that particular beetlish noise, a whirring tap, an itchy sort of sound. Ladybirds had been waking up for over a month, coming out of hibernation because of the warm weather. They'd had 3 in the bathroom at home, and Jen had dithered over whether to kill them or not, because they were all definitely harlequin ones and therefore invaders, imposters, villains who threatened local wildlife. She didn't dither now, but crossed the room and crushed the beetle in a tissue. "Meant to be bad luck to kill a ladybird," a woman said. She was on the cusp of being elderly, with grey-white hair cut very short, and several layers of clothes stretched tight across her back, and she was sitting by the bed of a small child, knitting. The colour of the cardigan she wore, teal, and the colour of the wool she was knitting with, dark turquoise, was so close it seemed as though she were adding to her own clothes as she went. There was something mythical about this, fairy-tale-like, which stopped Jen from telling her to piss off. She dropped the tissue into a hazardous waste bin and sat down again. She had painted a ladybird at the beginning of the week, mixing crimson and burnt sienna for the shell, dropping the paint lightly onto the paper. It seemed like a lifetime ago, or perhaps more accurately, it seemed like a moment she had imagined during a sun-drenched daydream. Lana had painted the beetle too, nestled inside a cowslip, but the red paint had bled into the pale yellow of the flower, and she'd been annoyed and ripped the paper. Lana had destroyed lots of work over the holiday, despite Jen begging her not to. There were a dozen ragged edges in her sketchbook, the remnants of pictures that had gone wrong. "Hello." A man wearing the doctor's uniform of a checked rolled-sleeve shirt tucked into chinos greeted them, and Hugh stood up, his own unchecked, unrolled, untucked shirt a little more crumpled, a little tighter over the belly. "I'm Dr. Kamal. Can you open your eyes for me, Lana?" He spoke with a deep, rich voice, tilting his head as he shone a light into Lana's eyes. Hugh stepped forward, and Jen knew he wanted to save her from this last bit of discomfort. Lana blinked and groaned, her head shrinking back into the pillow, her movements jerky when the doctor asked her to squeeze his fingers and submit to another blood pressure test. Each action seemed almost beyond her, and Lana's head fell forward when he was done. "It's all looking pretty good," the doctor said, pocketing the little torch. "We've got her temperature up, which we're pleased about. She's dehydrated and disorientated, obviously, and there are some infected scrapes. But the laceration on her head isn't nearly as..."